Okay, so hello everyone. Today we're going to look at the book of the sixth book of the Catholic Canon Law, which is the Interdict, a Papal Interdict, and we're going to analyze if today we are in an environment with the lockdowns, if that's a Papal Interdict. Let's have a look. Let's start that. So in Ecclesiastes 1:9, we see the things that has been, which is the things that shall be, and that the things that is done is that which shall be done. There's no new things under the sun. Of course, I think it's relevant today. I mean, events of the past will be repeated. And so this is why I think that looking at the canon law is important. Also in 1 Corinthians 10:11, we see that it's written that now these things are happen unto them for an example, and they shall be written as our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world has come. And so if this is the end of the world, the Bible is for us, is basically what it's saying. It's not saying that it was for the people during Jesus' time, it's saying it's for the people today. So okay, so I got this interesting article which started my reflection here, Vita E Pensiero by Michel Riondino, which was written in the start of the lockdowns. Basically, it's an analysis of the Catholic canon law. And so what she says is very interesting as an article. She says the purpose of this article is to decode the function and application of the penalty primarily through the analysis of the principle of restorative justice, considering mainly the grounding of restorative justice in the sixth book of the Catholic Canon Law, its principle, role and function, penalty and challenge, and synchronicity, and current upholding the principle of the application of the penalty. So there's the penalty. It's a penalty, an interdict is a penalty. You can read the story of Magna Carta. You'll see what an interdict is. An interdict was is rarely, it's often decreed for several years. And so the following reflections are enlightened by the notion of justice, which emerges in the Holy Scripture and coincide with the idea of saving the relationship. And so this is her conclusion here of the presentation of this interdict. The expression used in Canon 1341, and we will look at these canons in more detail a little later on, but for now let's concentrate on the article. Are explicit the attribution of the triple function of of sanctions, which are the scandal must be sufficiently repaid. So that's the first one. The justice restored, the second principle, and the third, the offender reformed. Okay, so there's 3 points in an interdict, and I believe that's right. The most generic composition of the same canon represent 2 methods of application for this function, being in the case the implication or declaration of sanction. So this is the judicial and administrative procedure. Those 2 things that needs to be touched in order to reform people. So I believe that the scandal that we have today is the environment, right? We are destroying the environment because of the CO2 that humans are producing, destroys the planet. It's basically what the Pope says in his Laudato Si encyclical, which you can read freely on the vatican.va site. You can see there's the entire encyclical is there. It's very interesting. So who told us that there was a scandal and needs to be repaired, right? This little girl here, Greta Thunberg. So if you read on her little card she got there, she says, join the climate strike, celebrate Laudato Si. So she's a cheerleader of the Pope, basically is what she is. This is, she's got a nice smile when she's with the Pope, but when she's at the UN or, talking at different parliament, this is what she looks like. She's really frustrated because we are, according to her, destroying our future. So she's an occultist, right? We see the hidden high sign here and here. Here there's also the 666 sign here as well. So this is all classic, as they say here, cabal puppet. I think this is right. This is she's a cheerleader of the Pope, of the cabal of the world, which wants to put back the Pope as emperor of the world. So let's see what the environment, because we cannot see very much of the environment in the canon law or the Catholic text. This is the Pope that is pushing for it, really. So in this Vatican news document, it says that the Pope, it did some kind of controversy when the Pope decided to worship Pachamama there, and there was a synod on the Amazon, and she actually worshipped Pachamama a little later on in St. Peter's, I believe, just not far from where he lives. And so the Pope, in this Catholic magazine Crux, he says that he wants to change the catechism in order to implement the ecological sin, which is not yet implemented. That's been a year since this article was written, and it's as for what I've seen, there's no big change that were published on the catechism. But he has a plan, seems, to change the catechism in order to implement the ecological sin. Now, of course, the BBC tells us that the lockdowns are a mass experiment for the climate lockdown, which are to come, according to many. Here's the Washington Times, the climate lockdowns here, and of course, when the President Trump decided to implement a lockdown at first in the month of March, everyone was saying that it was a dangerous thing to do, because afterward, with the crazy idea of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Green New Deal, they will be able to implement climate lockdown, and this is what we see happening right now. Of course, the UN is all, is pushing for this. I mean, for them, it's a great thing, because the Sustainable Development Goal, the SDGs, can be attained with lockdowns, because it diminishes the carbon footprint and so forth. The economic activities falls, and it's really the dream of the Greens, that the life that we have right now, where nothing works and we're under total control of the government and the economy crashes. It's really what they were asking for the past 5 years. And so the UN is pushing this. So the second point is the restoration of justice, right? So to ensure that this is the article from that lady there that we first looked. There was 3 points, and so that's the second point. To ensure that the restoration of justice is of primary consideration in the course of punishment, the restoration of justice must not be separate from 2 functions: the defense of the social order and the re-education of the faithful, the former of which should also demonstrate the latter. So they're linked. The social order and re-education must be, it's 2 functions of the restoration of the problem that there is, right? If we want to come out of a papal interdict, we need to solve 2 problems. We need to solve the problem with 2 functions, and this is the 2 functions she says. So the new social order was presented, I believe, with this guy, Klaus Schwab, in the World Economic Forum, right? So this guy's the Jesuit train, of course, they all are. And they all say that we need to reset the world according to different principles. Of course, the principles are basically laid down in the 2 encyclicals of the 2 last encyclicals of the Pope. That's Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti. Now, what is the Great Reset according to Wikipedia? According to Wikipedia, the Great Reset is a proposal by the WEF to rebuild the economy sustainably following the COVID-19 pandemics. Now, the economy was already sustainable. I really don't understand their language here. But of course, we understand that what they want is to implement the green legislation, right? So they want to control us better. They even do in the electric cars. They do there's a Bitcoin generator in the engine, and they will be able to control your the kilometers that you do within the city or where you travel with. What does this mean, education? The partners of the Global Compact on Education aim to safeguard and cultivate the common home, protecting it from the exploitation of resources, and to adopt a more sober lifestyle marked by a use of renewable energy source and respect of the natural and human environment in accordance to the principle of the subsidiarity, solidarity, and circular economy. So this is what the Pope Francis said on November 4, 2020. This is his goal of re-education is closely linked with this great reset and this green agenda. This is the same thing. The Pope controls the world, therefore, in his encyclical are his order for the governments of the world to implement, and we will see what happened from there, right? So this is what he said on re-education. Now don't forget, there was 2 points: the new social order and re-education. We cover those, so it does make sense that we are in a papal interdict right now because all the points are there. So on re-education, the Pope Francis called for global education pact with humanity, right? All these articles were written a couple of months ago. And wait a second. So the third point was that the offender must be reformed, right? So by 2030, we shall be reformed. So as we can see here, this is one of their liners there at the WEF. In 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Of course, the New World Order was a phrase not coined by the current leaders or former deceased now President George Bush. It was an idea that goes back to Stalin and Hitler and all those guys. They all talk about New World Order. They want to implement an occultist view of the world rather than Christianity that we had. They want to implement an occult agenda, right? So this is the World Economic Forum. The cities are going to be different by 2030, and of course all the different plans to develop trains and all that in cities are all to make sure that the cars are not there and that you're stuck in the city by 2030. So this push, the Great Reset is pushed by the UN, right? The UN is completely, in sync with this. And really the Great Reset is really similar to what I've already studied in this book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy by Alice Bailey, where they're talking about the Great Approach, the Great Release, the Great Invocation, the Great One. Now they pray, Lucifer. Of course, they call him Christ, but it's a little bit crazy. And and so the Great Reset means great approach, great release. It's all great, right? And Bailey, she was a cheerleader of the UN. In her book there, the United Nations, it comes up over 40 times that she's talking about, we need to submit to the UN and so forth. So the occult agenda was carried on by the occultists, the Freemasons and so forth. The Catholic Church leads all of them. So that's it. So there's an application of punishment that we are going to look at, and before looking at the canon law itself, we're going to look at this, which is pertinent to the application of the punishment, is to deepen the basis upon which to justify the choice of either judicial or extrajudicial procedures. There's a further condition to put in place by law stipulating that the application of sanction may occur only after it is ascertained that it is insufficient to punish delict. By fraternal correction of reproof, fraternal correction of reproof, nor by any method of pastoral care. This is relevant not only to the application of the sanction, but also to its function. So, it's, it's language that can be applied to what we see today, right? So according to them, there's the triple function of the punishment, right, that we've looked, just like the dual manner of the application cannot be comprehended without having in mind the norms of the same book 6 of the Catholic Catechism. So let's look at the Catholic Catechism, not the Catholic Catechism, the canon law, right? The 6 books of this canon law is about the interdict. So you can look in the Vatican canon law. You can search on the Vatican site, and you'll see those canons. So on Canon 1341, an ordinary, right, is to take care of the initiate a judicial or administrative process to impose or declare penalties only after he has ascertained that fraternal correction or rebuke or other mean of pastoral solution cannot be sufficiently repair the scandal, restore justice, reform the offender. So this is a canon where it's there's a scandal which needs to be repaired, right? And there's some action that needs to be taken. In canon, you can all read those canons. They are interesting to see, their mentality. Our entire system of law, is in defense of those things, because you need to understand that after the Protestant Reformation in the 1500 and 1600 century, 1500 and 1600, the laws were gradually changed from those canon into laws that were made by the people, Parliament that was elected by the people. And so the laws would be in defense of the people and were made by the people. And it's all a concept that evolved from the Protestant Reformation. Now, those canon laws are dictatorial laws. They're papal laws. They're a papal system. That's a thing that we get rid of after the Reformation, when the Christianity became so popular, in particular with the establishment of the United States, that the entire planet wanted to follow this lead, because they see the great richness of freedom that there was behind it, and so they let go of those canons. Now today we need to look at those canons because they're coming back. And so the Canon 1399, in addition to the cases established here or in other laws, the external violation of a divine or canonical law can be punished by a just penalty only when the special gravity of the violation demands punishment and there's an urgent need to prevent or repair scandal. Isn't that urgent that we only have 10 years according to them, right? There's an urgent need to get rid of this climate crisis according to them. So it's again, it's a language that fits. Let's look at the censures that must be implemented. So according to them, right? They excommunicated people, right? They explain how they do this. So they cannot go at church. They cannot exercise ecclesiastical office. There's many things there. You can press pause and look at this, or look at the Vatican site. So there's all things that needs to be censored. Now, of course, according to this censure page or canon, we've seen the censure just before, in the month of November, December, just before the election. They grilled the CEOs of Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and Twitter, all those guys that have control over social media. right? They grilled them. The Senate grilled them really, and they made them promise that they would, conform and all this. And I've also heard the CEO of Facebook saying that they've controlled the information basically after the shooting in New Zealand last year in 2019, which I believe that was, I'm not sure, but I believe the government decided to seize the firearms of the New Zealanders afterward. And so, those censures are going on right now. And gradually we see on YouTube the information being censored. And of course, that guy from Twitter, it's also another surprise that his uncle is a Jesuit priest, right? It's all connecting. It's always connecting. You can always see that the schools and the Jesuits are always not far from the guys there. The guys that they put in front of them to make sure they're not seen as the criminal that they are. So in Canon 1333, we see that the laws that when there's an interdict, basically the clerics cannot do anything. So according to the Catholic Church, they run the Christian faith. And so it doesn't only apply to the Catholic Church, it also applies to the various churches, because it's the ecumenical movement. It's put all the different religions of the world under the Pope. And so right now we can claim to be the representative of the world. And so if this canon is right now in operation, and particularly when there's a lockdown, there's no church service, right? No church service on any day. And so it's forbidden to assemble for worship. And so this is that canon. This is Canon 1333. So this is, I believe, the most important canons, 13, 11, and 12. So it says here that the church has an innate and proper right to coerce offending members of the Christian faithful with penal sanctions. And look at the penal sanctions that they put on there, okay, at 13:12. The following penal sanctions of the church are medicinal penalties. Medicinal penalties. Right? Does it sound like a vaccine, man? I mean, to me, it's so obvious, right? Or censures, or we look at censures already, which are listed in 1331, 1333. We've looked at that. And expiatory penalties mentioned in 1336. The law can establish other expiatory penalties, under the form of spiritual and temporal good. The two keys on the Vatican flag represents the temporal power of the Pope and the spiritual power of the Pope. So right now we have according to this canon, right, we have the Pope ruling the world according to his two keys, the spiritual power and his temporal power. And he can stop the church's services, and so that's the spiritual part. The temporal part is the economics, all the things that we do. They're running the world, running the government. This is church and state, right? This is what we threw in the garbage when we decided, as a people, as Canadians or as Americans, to decide to do laws with a parliament, with people representing us, doing laws for us. Right, and so this is complete reversal of what happened during the American Revolution, which led the way to the spread of the Protestant values throughout the world, with the parliament system that we have nearly worldwide. And so this is very alarming. This, and the third point here that we have. The penal remedies and penance are also used as a form especially to prevent delict, the latter to substitute for the increase a penalty, or to increase a penalty. And so, the Pope runs it right now, because it says the Christian faithful, doesn't say the Catholic Church here. So we've seen that there was a mention of Canon 1336, and so it tells us here that all the details about it, right? So he's talking about privation of this and that, and the clerical state, And so, of course, when we're talking about these things, we're talking about church and state. We have to look at this and say, this is the medicinal penalties seems to be the vaccine, right? To me, it's obvious. I mean, I don't know if it's clear enough, but to me, it's obvious that it follows all the steps of the Papal Interdict seems to be leading to this. And we see that there's a vaccine going on right now, right? And we see that they declare that vaccine to be a common good, a global common good. Now, on this page, you see, there's Gordon Brown here, former Prime Minister of UK. You see the actor here. There's an actor, I forget his name. Is Bono here. And so many other, all those guys are actors and politicians and so forth. And so they're all on it, right? It's and what is the common good according to the Catholic Church, right? Because it's a legitimate question. They're saying, declare COVID-19 vaccine as global common good. What does it mean? Basically, it means that a common good is a principle of the Catholic Church. It's not only one thing. It's a principle where individuality must be put aside in order for the community or the common good to flourish. And so the individuality, your personal opinion are not necessary. They will be put aside, just like now with the COVID and all the measures. And it's for the common good. What does the common good lead to, according to the Catholic Church? It's a good question, right? That vaccine, I forget. Yeah. It's a very interesting article here that I found on Yahoo. Of course, it's only appear on my phone. It doesn't appear on my computer. But when you look at the shot, when Joe Biden received his vaccine on November 21st, he received it at 3:22 p.m., right? I mean, those guys, they're not very, they're so blatantly in your face right now. So this is the 322 is the sign of the Skull and Bones, right? The Skull and Bones is a secret society. Former Presidents Bush, the father and the son, were Skull and Bones. Former president candidate John Kerry was Skull and Bones. You got Stephen Mnuchin right now, Secretary of the Treasury, which is a Skull and Bone too. So that's a secret brotherhood of the Yale University, right? That was brought back from that university in Germany where Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati. And so the Skull and Bones also bear the name Brotherhood of Death. I found it interesting, of course, right? Now it can be it can be done by complete hazard. I mean, it could be a coincidence. I don't deny it, but it's a strange coincidence that we have here. But according to the Catholic Church, the common good, really, let's read at Catechism 2188. The common good is in respect of religious liberty and common good of all. Well, I just press pause here to comment on that very short phrase. The Catholic Church has never respected religious liberty. The very fact that the Jesuit order exists in order to infiltrate all the churches of the world is a fact that they don't respect religious liberty. You can read on the Jesuit oaths of the fourth degree and the Knights of Columbus oath, which is the same. They don't respect their religious liberty. But they let them describe what the common good is, right? For the common good of all, the Christian should seek the recognition of Sundays and the church holy days as legal holiday, right? This is what it's all about. It's going to be, we're already hearing Gates about, how it's important to get the vaccine, and that the lockdowns are preparatory for the environment lockdowns that's going to follow through. And once we're going to be in the environmental lockdowns, it's going to be, the government will call for Sunday lockdowns. It's what they're going to call, because it's in the catechism, it's in the canon law as well. It's all in it. So all these things, the lockdowns that we have, it does have a prophetic application, right? If you read in Isaiah 24:10, it says the city of confusion is broken down, right? So isn't it right now the city of confusion is Babylon? It's also named Babylon. You can read Revelation 18. It describes it very well. So it's broken down. And so it says afterward, every house is shut up, that no man may come in. Isn't it exactly what's going on right now? So the Papal Interdict, usually it lasts 3 years, right? It's what Canon 1362 says. It says after 3 years, right? And in point 1 here, it says that it can only be basically, it can only be stopped by the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, which is the Inquisition, which is run by the Jesuits. And that if there's an action mentioned in those canons, 94, 95, 97, 98, then the canon will last 5 years. And so I think it's important that we have a look at this, because Gates says, Bill Gates, he says that it's going to last until 2022. That's what he says. And the canon says the same, right? It says 3 years. And so if it starts in 2020, 2021, 2022, we got 3 years, depending on, exactly when it's going to stop. But it's not going to stop, according to, well, as per what I think, my opinion. And if those canons are, basically, if there's a delict on those canons, it's going to last 5 years. So I think it's important we look at that, because there's a real possibilities that those lockdowns are going to be prolonged. So let's look at 1394. So it says here that basically the clerics, if he break those interdict, he is dismissed from the clerical state. If he attempt marriage, even civilly, he has to be penalized. And 1395 is very interesting. If a cleric lives in concubinage, okay, so there's a scandal here. And 1394, if the cleric persists with a scandal and another external sin against the sixth commandment, now that's the thou shalt not kill of the Decalogue, so he's going to be suspended. So we know that the Catholic Church, they practice satanic ritual abuse. There was delivery of kids in the Vatican. It's went out in the national Italian news and went very viral when it did. So they do that, right? And so so if there's another concerning the sixth commandment of the Decalogue, then there's a threat, and if there's a delict with a person below the age of 16 years, it will be a penalty. So you're talking here about a canon that's basically built up to denounce the very organization that creates that canon, because there's only one church in the world that has repeatedly been found guilty of that pedophile scandals after pedophile scandals throughout the world. There's only a Catholic Church. So that's very interesting. And if those if those problems are going to persist, I believe according to canon law, the interdict will last 5 years, right? And I just like to remind people that there's ample evidence that could prove that Francis is a pedophile, right? He wore the symbol of the little boys there on his scarf that he had when he performed Mass. And Benedict, of course, everybody thinks that he stepped down because of this pedophile scandal that he had in Europe. There's also people that are saying that the reason why he stays at the Vatican is that there's an international arrest order against him. I don't know that, but according to what we've seen for the pedophilia thing, I think it's more than reasonable to think that. So Canon 1397 and 98. So 97 if an homicide is committed or a kidnap. So two things are done according to what I've seen on the news in Italy. So there was delivery of small children at the Vatican, and so that's kidnapping. And homicide, well, we don't see them go out. And the most interesting one is, I believe, the Canon 1398, because it's talking about abortion. And abortion, it's a subject that has been led to the news lately for the last year or two, I believe. And the most conservative opinions over abortion is the conservative side of the Catholic Church that are very much against it. Now, of course, the canon law is really the strongest with the encyclicals. It's really the strongest way for the Catholic Church to get their opinion out. And so, according to 1398, if a particular country practice abortion, this interdict could last 5 years unless they backtrack on it and they implement new laws against abortion. And so we can see the prophetic application of that in that people will ask for Sunday to be implemented. And so gradually, if people start to understand that the Catholic Church controls, and they take side on that war, and they will take side. They will take side over the Catholic Church, or they will take side for the Bible. So this is the two only side that's going to be left in the end. And so we can see the scenario where the abortion issue will gradually be brought back, because people will understand that we're under an interdict, and they will want to conform to the Catholic Church doctrine in order to get back to normal. And so after the abortion issue, of course, there's the Sunday issue, because the Pope asks in various in the catechism, in the canons, that the Sunday must be kept as a day of rest rather than Saturday, right? The Bible says it's Saturday. The Catholic Church says it's Sunday. So we got Bill Gates here. I decided not to play the video. He says that basically it's going to last 3 years. It's going to go back to normal not before 2022. This is what he says. So, of course, Bill Gates is a guy that doesn't have any credentials in medicinal. He's not a doctor. He doesn't even have a university degree. He's a dropout, right? He's a little rebel, a playboy. This is what he is. And so he's giving lessons to the world right now, saying, we need to do this and we need to do that. So this guy is completely out of sync with what should be, the way to communicate. Medical opinions should not be done by a tech giant or billionaire. Should be done by a doctor, and preferably not a Jesuit doctor. So there's another interview here. We're gonna where it says that the climate lockdown are coming. Basically, is what it says. I decided not to play the video. I'm gonna maybe put it on the channel as a standalone there. So we see that the church and state is really uniting when we see the lockdowns, and the interdict is really in application right now. So the application, the prophetic application of this, I believe, can be found in Revelation 14:8. And it says, "And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drinks of the wine of the wrath of fornication." So the fornication in the Bible is church and state. Of course, it can mean, sexual intercourse, but in this particular case, it means church and state. And when basically we've seen in Isaiah a little earlier on that there's a sign that people will not be able to visit one another. And so I believe it's the start of the fall of Babylon, right? And when Babylon falls, what happens? Well, we can see that, just forget this slide. We can see those news from Canada here, CTV and Global, where the Pope says on January the 3rd that people should not go to holiday during COVID, right? And 2 days after, what we get the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, says, hey, you can't travel. And so it's a clear sign that the Pope runs things right now, at least in Canada. I believe in the United States too. I believe in the United States it's more subtle, but he does too in the United States, because both the Republicans and the Democrats are led by Jesuits. Trump is for them educated, so he's trained by the Jesuit, and Joe Biden is a Knight of Malta, so another Catholic organization. And so, but in Canada now it's becoming more and more clear. I mean, the Trudeau, he bows down to what the Pope says. And so I think it's appropriate to read Revelation 18, because it's really, it's the heart and soul of what's going on in the end of the world, according to the Bible. What is Babylon and what's going on? So let's read it together. For her sin have reached unto heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her work. In her cup which she hath filled fill her double. How much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. And she said in her heart, I sit as a queen, I am no widow, and I shall see no sorrow. Therefore her plagues come down in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God that judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her, when they shall see that the smoke of her burning, standing afar for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buy in their merchandise any more, the merchandise of gold, silver, and so forth. And so according to Isaiah, we're at the start of that, and we see that the merchants of the earth are part of Babylon, and we see that the kings of the earth are part of Babylon. And if we could go dig a little deeper, we could see that the artists of the world are bowed down to Babylon, to the Pope, and all the people on TV and radio, regardless of their opinion, left or right, they are bowed down to the Pope. That's what they do. His church and state is here. And so it says really that the kings of the earth have committed fornication, just like Revelation 14. And of course, we got a prophet that also talks about those things, right? What are they going to do when they're going to see Babylon falling, right? They're going to see Babylon falling, and they're saying, right? They're saying what? They lament, right? They lament, and they want the money that comes with the glory, because they've committed fornication. And so what they're going to do, they're going to print money. They're going to print their money. They're going to print their lives out of this. They're going to try to print money out of this crisis, trying to destroy the currency and to reestablish a normal economy, as they say, but it's not going to be normal. Even them know it, because there's a great reset. And so they lament them. And so what's going to happen right now is, I believe, written in 5 Manuscript Reliefs, page 305, paragraph 4. They purchase at low rates, right? So the low rate, so the price of things was much lower last year than today, right? And all they can obtain, and then sell at greatly increased price. This means starvation for the poor class, and will result in what? It will result in a civil war. And I believe that Ellen White was right when she was saying this, and I believe it's just upon us. We can see the famine coming. We can see, the economic system crashing down. And so the classical, response for the countries of the world, the economies of the world, is to devaluate their money and to make sure that the businesses grow their profit. And to do that, they destroy the value of currency. And when they do that, the economy usually restarts because of various, systems. Debt is a big part of it, but devaluation is also a very big part of it. But right now, the debt levels are very high, both in individual, households and commercial households. I mean, businesses and governments are very in debt. It started really in 2008. The debt bubble really exploded. The debt level, they exploded around the world. Canada was among the lowest debt ratio that we had per capita, and now we're amongst the highest. And I believe this will come to pass very shortly. In 1 Peter 4:16-18, it says, "Yet, if any man suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on his behalf. For the time is come that the judgment must begin at the house of God." Right? The judgment, it begins at the house of God. And so when you see destruction, the destruction will start with I believe, the house of God. So the house of God is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I believe that the Seventh-day Adventist Church will be destroyed before the rest will be destroyed, before the economy crashes completely. I believe that it's what it says here in 1 Peter. And so I believe that the house of God, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we think that it's the church of Laodicea. It's a church that's asleep. It's a church that's sleeping. It's a church that does not do its job. It's the church that's not proclaiming the first, second, and third angels' message, particularly the second and the third. They're not saying it. They're not, describing Babylon. They're not describing the beast. So they're not doing their job. And so therefore God will destroy. He will start by judging the church, his church, because it's not doing the job. In Great Controversy 589, it says, "While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies," right? "You will bring disease and disasters until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. He sweeps away a ripening harvest, and famine and distress follows. He impart to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast. The earth mourn and fade away. The odd people do languish. The earth also is the fire under the inhabitant thereof, because they have transgressed the law, changed the ordinances, and broken the everlasting covenant." And so this is what's going to happen shortly, I believe, too. I believe the great physician is Satan, and he will bring disease and disaster. Right, is what's going on with the vaccine, and populous city will be reduced to ruin. We've seen Joe Biden with the 322. We've seen, there's even people are dying after being vaccinated right now. And so this is the deadly taint that he gives to the air, the chemtrails. And 2 says, "Again and again the Lord has instructed that our people are to take their families away from the cities into the country, where they can raise their own provision, for in the future the problem of buying and selling will be a very serious one. We should now begin to heed their instruction given us over and over again. Get out of the cities into the rural district, where the houses are not crowded closely together, and where you will be free from the interference of the enemies." So that's what we need to do right now. In Prophets and Kings, page 184, it says, "Human laws will be made so stringent that man and woman will not dare to observe the 7-day Sabbath for fear of wanting food and clothing. They will join with the world in transgressing God's law. This is what will happen. It says that even, human laws and people will not dare to observe the 7-day Sabbath, meaning that even Adventists will decide to go on church on Sunday. Let's see a little bit about Sunday in the Canon. Canon 1247, it says, on Sunday and other holy days of obligation, the faithful are obliged to participate in the Mass. You see what's the Catholic Church? You can see it only in this canon. You can see what is the Catholic Church. It's a dictatorial system, right? And let's see what what the Catholic Church said about Sunday. Cardinal Gibbons has said openly, you can find it on the internet. Of course, the Catholic Church claims that the change was her act. It could not have been otherwise, as none in those days would have dreamed of doing anything in matter spiritual, ecclesiastical, and religious without her. This act is a mark of her ecclesiastical power and authority in religious matter. Isn't that particular? I mean, it's interesting that the cardinal used the word, this act is a mark, right? Of course it's a mark. It's the mark of the beast. And the church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. In the Catholic record, September 1st, 1923, you can see that. And so the Sunday laws are coming. All these things are trending to, from the lockdowns, the virus, and then it's going to be the environmental lockdowns, and then it's going to be the Sunday that's going to be asked. This is the final aim. It's the mark of the beast. And right now what we have is a fake mark of the beast, even though the vaccine seems to be poisonous, and I will not be taking it. Even though it is so, it is not the mark of the beast. But Satan is very good, and he mislead people thinking that the vaccine is the mark of the beast. It's not the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is Sunday. It's all about worship. The mark of the beast is about worship. It's not about a vaccine or code bar or anything else. It's really Sunday. Let's see what this guy has to say about Protestant Reformation. In his book World Order, page 20, we see what Henry Kissinger, Knight of Malta, has to say. The Protestant Reformation destroyed the two swords of empire and the papacy. So this is what they're after. They're after the destruction of the Protestant Reformation with this New World Order. This guy is a consultant to the various presidents for the last, 40 years in the United States. He is a papal bowing Jew, is what he is. So let's see what's coming after that. Very shortly we will have this coming, Revelation 17, I believe. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and they shall give power and strength unto the beast. So those kings are going to give the power to the Pope. And these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. Of course, we know who the Lamb is. It's Jesus. For he is the Lord of lords and Kings of kings, and they shall, and they that are with him are called and chosen faithful. And he says unto me, the waters which you saw, where the whore sit, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongue. And so this whore is a woman is always a church in the Bible. And so the whore is an apostate church, is the Catholic Church. And she sits, you see, on multitudes, nations, tongues. And the 10 horns that you saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And so the Catholic Church will be destroyed by the beast, by the beast. The beast, the Pope, which lead the beast. The beast is always a kingdom. Will destroy the Catholic Church, and the woman right now, well, it can be interpreted into two ways. It can be interpreted as the beast is going to destroy the Catholic Church, or the beast is going to destroy, that apostate spiritualist church. Because in the end times, it's more the woman rides the beast from the bottomless pit, which is spiritualism. And so we can see right now, in my experience, I've seen that in the Catholic Church, all are under the controls of the Jesuits, and the Jesuits are occultists, and the liberals are basically running the Catholic Church, and they've already destroyed that church with spiritualism, because those liberals, they're all Masons, and they worship Lucifer according to secret doctrine of Helena Blavatsky and Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. And if you read any books of Aleister Crowley, is really really clear that they are occultists. And so the 10 horns, right? So we're the CFR published this, and it was published originally in the UN. It was accordingly, supposedly, Bill Clinton to have signed something in Canada. It was signed also in the 90s to divide the world in 10 regions. So we can see there are several versions of that map. But in this version, we can see that the world has been divided by the CFR in 10 countries. So we see Canada, US as one, with Iceland and Europe, and Great Britain, and Australia, New Zealand. So that's one country, and Japan. That's the developed world, basically. And so this is one region. And so you have the other kingdoms there. And so, when we look at the news, of course, they don't tell you that. They're telling you that everything's fine, everything's going back to normal, and so forth. What a joke, What's going to happen, I believe, is that the news will continue to lie to us until there's a Sunday law. But, there's one guy in history that has done a very good job in describing what the news outlet were and how it worked. And I'd like to present to you this guy, John Swinton. He lived in those dates. He was a journalist for the New York Times, New York Sun, Horace Greeley New York Tribune, and he was a freelancer, meaning he worked for various newspaper. And you can find this in Wikipedia, which is very funny and I believe very accurate. There's no such thing as in America as an independent press unless it is out in the country towns. You are all slaves. You know it, and I know it. There's no one of you who dares to express an honest opinion. If you express it, you should know beforehand that you would never appear in print. I'm paid $150 to keep honest opinion out of the paper I'm connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for doing similar things. If I should allow honest opinion to be printed in one of my newspaper, I would be like Ortello. Before 24 hours, my occupation would be gone. The man who would be so foolish as to write honest opinion would be out on the street hunting for another job. The business of a New York journalist is to distort the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to flaunt at the feet of Mammon, and to sell his country and his race for his daily bread, or for what is about the same, his salary. You know this, and I know it. And what folly to be toasting to an independent press? We are the tools and vassals of the rich men behind the scenes. We are the jumping jacks, they pull the strings, and we dance. Our time, talent, lives, possibilities are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. I believe it's a very good phrase to end this presentation. So, on that, God bless you and see you next time.